we are officially here. This is the RookieViLLe podcast presented by BALLSVILLE, where we combine fantasy football and poker, where we create big payouts with great odds. My name is JoJo, and this is my pal Connor, who also goes by C-Bomb on Sleeper. How you doing tonight, Connor?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, I'm excited to hop into some rookie talk. You know, we've been talking a lot of older players, a lot of redraft stuff, and the regular podcast. We got the triathlon leagues going on, but yeah, rookies is something I love to talk about, and I really focus a lot in on college football. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
It's the best time of the year, like I was saying earlier, like the other day, either on the main pod and also just pre-show. Just like this is the best time of the year. Just going into some of the players that maybe some casual fans may not really know too much about, right? But I know that there's a lot of sources out there that cover a lot of post-draft and rookie prospect talk. But I want you guys to think about this as like a post-draft gut check. Here to give you that context, clarity, and conviction to either double down or maybe even pivot off the picks that you've already made, off those completed rookie drafts, or if you haven't yet had any rookie drafts yet, maybe use this as that conviction, like I was saying. So, Connor, let's just get right into it. We don't have much time. I want to really keep these nice and short. We also have a series, guys. One last thing is we do have a series over the next few weeks where we're going to actually, after going through the top 24, this episode is going to be 1 through 12, 13 through 24. We'll also maybe touch on some sleepers also on that last one. But the next series is going to be all about Connor's Volume 2, Dynasty Handbook, player profiles, Dynasty flips and sells, or buys and sells, and then either maybe like a 3-man mock coming up. So just stay tuned. But without further ado, let's get right into it, like I said. So,
sweet.
Number 1, which is pretty much consensus across the board. We don't have to spend a long time on this one, beat a dead horse. But Ashton Jeanty is our number 1, as you can also see the rank on the left. These are my rankings, but Connor also has his ranking to the right, as you can see there. So, Connor, I want you to kind of lead us off and talk about Jeanty. If you can, throw out some red flags. If you can, might be hard, but go ahead.
Yeah, so, I mean, he should be, in my opinion, should be viewed with the Gibbs and the Bijan tier of running backs. He's up in the top 3 for me already. I haven't seen anybody else in any of my Ballsville leagues go at the 101. So, I mean, there's really no concern across the board from anybody that I've seen not taking him at the 101. Nobody else has slid up there. I will say, the only real concern was that last game he had in college. There was a tough defense. They were really focused in on him, but he really didn't have that much production. But I mean, when you're averaging almost 200 yards a game, and you only have 100, it's pretty funny that that's the game everybody locks in on. So,
yeah, well, I guess like you say, like the last impression, if you will, maybe. But he's a cornerstone dynasty piece. We're not going to debate that too much. I do have some like other little stats here. 9 running backs taken in the top half of the draft, going back to, I believe, like 2011. 6 of those 9 running backs have had a 20-plus fantasy point average. If you're taking this high, we don't see it too much anymore, right? But if you're taking this high, I think you got to believe in that NFL scouting and just like have that confidence and conviction, which it seems like no one's questioning it with him being the consensus number 1 across the board. If you had to pick a red flag, is there anything that you can point out aside from that last impression? Is there anything about his, like, I guess, production profile that might have scared you at all by making him the consensus number 1?
No, not really. I mean, the only real concern would be his the team he went to. Sorry, JoJo. So I think the offense there might be a little bit of problems early on, but you never know. He could be a star. So
no, man, we solidified our QB position a little bit. I got at least just to keep it there for the next couple 2 to 3 years, I'd say, with Geno. But I'm excited to see what they got. Yes, I am the resident Las Vegas Raider fan here at the pod, but along with, I guess, the East Coast with Scott, though. Anyway, number 2, Travis Hunter. As my number 2 is also with yours. I think like the notes say here, the trade from 5 to 2 pretty much signals that they'll let him do what he wants to do on both sides of the ball. Although the coach speak, press conferences, they're going to let him be a primarily offensive player. But you know what? My thing, as the offseason continues, Connor, I'm thinking, I think his value can actually, or his ADP, I wouldn't say value, I would say ADP can drop because, with all the coach speak, with all the the pundits out there, the beat writers that attend these practices and live scrimmages in the off season, they're going to probably highlight some plays he makes on defense, right? So like that will start creeping in, and then people might start retreating. So what do you make of that, I guess, as he is like our consensus number 2 here on landing spot? But go ahead.
So unlike Genty, I have seen so many different people go the 102 depending on your league. You got other guys like Hampton, Ward. I've even seen Henderson go, tight end premium. I've seen Warren go. So it's all over the place. I've seen Hunter fall to all the way to the 108. I've seen Hunter go to the 107. I've seen Hunter go to the 106. So there's various opinions depending on what league you're in on Hunter. Personally, me, dynasty-wise, I just think he has the highest upside besides anybody that Genty does, that besides Genty. So I'm just picking him every time I'm 102. I'm picking him just about.
I have a lot of them too.
Yeah. So I really love his, his play style, his profile, especially as a wide receiver. I think he's probably going to be playing majority of that this season. Like you said, a lot of coaches speak on that, but really, really love him as a player, as a definitely a wide receiver too.
Yeah, just a couple of other notes before we move on to number 3 is, he landed in the, he was supposed to go to Cleveland, right? He was supposed to, but he actually landed in a great division. They got the soft Indianapolis Colts. I would say Tennessee Titans also pretty soft. They also have 2 teams in that division that are in domes. So like you would think the offensive firepower with under Liam Cohen can really shine in that division where they play those teams twice a year. So I think there's some, obviously, like I said, the upside is obviously there. Moving on, number 3. We got our Omarion Hampton. Again, we're pretty in lockstep here so far. I think the only thing I would say about Hampton is that in a Greg Roman offense, I mean, like I said, like he's pro ready, he's 3-down skill set, everything looks peachy. But like I said, the Greg Roman offense does not have a top 10 fantasy backfield ever. So, and I think that's primarily just because of the pass catching upside. They definitely run the ball, run the hell of the ball. They don't just target the running backs out of the backfield too much. What do you make of that? Should we temper expectations, or is he just that immediate production fit for gamers to be drafting him at number 3?
Yeah, I don't think, like I said, I think we have it there. We should, temper expectations year 1. Najee is there. So, you got to watch out. He might not even be the lead back week 1. You never know. But they obviously invested a lot of draft capital on him. So I think dynasty wise, he's somebody I'm taking at 3. But before pre-draft, I had Henderson above him. With the draft capital, I had moved him up all the way to 3. I like him as a player. But like you said, temper expectations year 1. We'll see what he can do after that. I think Najee only had a 1-year contract. So,
gotcha. And I don't know if I misspoke, but I meant to say fantasy season backfield, not running back. I don't know if I misspoke, but it's a backfield as a whole. But also bottom 5 in the league in target share of the times that Greg Roman has run offenses. Najee is definitely, like you said, is going to be a nuisance. Do you think there's going to be potentially like a Bucky Irving situation here, though, where the incumbent obviously could be the starter and out, but like talent wins out like Bucky did last year in Tampa Bay? Can you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, you can see basically any scenario happening over there in Los Angeles. I do still expect Najee to get a lot of the work early in the season, but like you said, Bucky came on pretty late last year. I think like week 12, he became like, just a star fantasy wise. I don't think that's going to be Hampton. I don't think he's just going to be 25 points a game, basically the last end of the season. He might slip up and be the lead back there, but I still would, if you shouldn't be counting on a rookie running back except maybe Genty to lead you to the fantasy playoffs. So
yeah, Najee was definitely going to frustrate, right? He does everything the coaches love from a non-fantasy sense. So okay, let's move on. Number 4, Tet McMillan. With Tet, I think it just really depends on how much Bryce can really take a leap, right? Yeah. If he can elevate the talent around him, how much does that really benefit Tet in the long run, or even just in year 1? I obviously have some great comps with him on this one. I even touched on comps in the last 3. But Cortland Sutton, T. Higgins, Mike Evans, he kind of has that mold of a true X. We're also, again, in lockstep with number 4 here, but go ahead if anything I missed here with Bryce really elevating Tet?
Yeah, like you said, it's going to be a lot of Bryce, a lot of dependency on Bryce and what he can do this year. He really showed some flashes at the end of last year. He had a really struggling beginning of the season last year. Hopefully that doesn't start out like that. All the comps are great players. I mean, Mike Evans may be the most consistent wide receiver ever. T. Higgins has, a great wide receiver. Courtland Sutton's not a sexy name, but he's really, production-wise great. Yeah, exactly. But none of these guys have ever been, your fantasy Jamar Chases, your Justin Jeffersons. They're never going in round 1 to fantasy football. So that's a little bit, somewhere to be wary of, and why I don't personally have them at 3. And I know some people do. I know some people who have them at 2. But, just temper your expectations to be, he might not be the next Jamar Chase. He might not be, the next Justin Jefferson, but he still can be a great dynasty asset. So I'm taking him at 4, as are you. I'm taking him above the quarterback of Cam Ward. But yeah, the offseason videos at 1, sold me right away. So,
I mean, the production profile was insane. Like, I think it was over 100 yards average the last 2 seasons in college. You don't just do that, right? There's a talent thing there that he definitely does have. But a lot of pre-draft stuff leading up to the draft, especially on like mock draft database, had him comped to or not comped, but selected by the Cowboys, where there's a solidified number 1 where he can actually be like the T. Higgins, where again, he's like a 1B, where he could be more beneficial that way. I mean, there's a, veteran Adam Thielen there. We'll see how that plays out. Obviously he's on the back nine of his career as it is. But that all being said, still feel confident with Tet McMillan in your top 5. Cam Ward is our number 5 here, or at least my number 5. I think this is where we finally kind of merge away here. We'll see how many more we have in lockstep from here on out. But he's obviously the best quarterback in the class. We're not even going to talk about Shador here. I think that just from picks 2 through 5, I think from like we just touched on, from Hunter to Ward, you can pretty much go in any order, right, Connor? Like based on your team need, I guess for your roster construction on your dynasty teams. That being said, I'm more about drafting best player available and then trade for need. That's how I play dynasty, really. But again, it's your team. But I think there's really no true order. This is just our preference. But go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm never drafting for – not never. I'll say most of the time.
Not never, but –
Not never, yeah. Most of the time, I'm never drafting for need. And that's why I even have Cam Ward even lower than you. I have him at 6. Pre-draft, I hated. I did not like the tape. He had some explosive moments, but he was way too careless with the ball. He tried to be a lot of Caleb Williams type plays. It caused him a lot of turnovers, caused Miami a lot of games. But I mean, his mentality going into the year, I think, made him the number 1 overall pick, and that's why he's all the way up at 6 for me. He wasn't even, to be honest with you, my favorite QB prospect coming into the draft. So he has a lot of potential, though. So I will say, like I said, love the mentality. Just didn't love the tape on Cam Ward. We'll see what he can do.
He takes a lot of. He took a lot of sacks that really hurt drives in Miami. Yep. He hurt his team getting out of field goal position or even just scoring position in general. Like those things in the NFL, like they're going to drive coaches crazy. Will Levis, they went through a lot of things with Will Levis with the turnovers, the terrible sacks, and then just like flipping the ball behind his back or behind his head for God knows what reason. He's also already 23, right? He's one of the older prospects. He's not the oldest quarterback, which we'll probably touch on the 13 to 24 maybe. Yes, the comps there, like I typed up here, I think Sam Darnold's a good floor. Kind of like the way he plays. He can make all the throws. He's got a great arm. Which Sam Darnold has always been able to make a lot of throws. That's why I like that comp. But he's always had that like improv. Those aren't always translatable. So that's why we're both kind of weary about Cam Ward. But let's keep it moving here. Number 6, I have Trey Hendo. We just kind of reversed here. 5 and 6. I just obviously went through quarterback just because of Superflex. That's kind of where the real tiebreaker there. And to be honest, I really didn't like this landing spot when it first happened, right? I'm a Josh McDaniels hater. I am proud to say it after what he did to my squad. But I also just think Tom Brady's success wasn't really hindered around Josh McDaniels. I think it was just Tom Brady being great. So ever since then, Josh McDaniels has driven a lot of teams in the ground. Denver, Las Vegas. maybe he's going to drive the Patriots back down to the ground. I feel bad for Drake May, but we're talking about Trey Hendo here. But still, he's very talented. At this position, talent usually wins out. He's very explosive. This offense lacked any kind of explosiveness last year. And he's just one of the best backs, like I wrote here in Pass Pro. Like that gives him opportunity to be on the field. Granted, there is Ramondre Stevenson, so touches are going to be limited. But anything else to add or retort here with Trey Hendo?
Yeah, I loved him pre-draft. He was actually my second favorite running back after Genty. Loved his profile, his speed, like you said, pass blocking. I think a lot of scouts after the draft basically said he was the most well-rounded running back coming out. So I loved him pre-draft, and that's why I'm taking him above Cam Ward. I personally actually liked the Patriots. They have a lot of opportunity there. They really don't have a bona fide wide receiver one still. I mean, you might say Diggs now, but you never know with coming off injury and age. So he might get some passes out of the backfield from May, who likes to dump it down. And then Ramondre, he got a contract, but he couldn't even stay on the field a lot because of the ball security issues that he had last year. So
and I believe Trey Hendo has not fumbled in his career so far.
Yeah, he's that's like I said. I love the tape. I love his profile pre-draft. So
yeah, like you touched on, passing role is definitely going to be there. He doesn't drop the ball when the Cars fumbles, and he's going to pass pro. It's like, how are you going to keep this guy off the field, right? So, looking forward to see what he can do. And then moving forward, number 7, his running mates, and we actually we're matching up here, number 7 with QJ. I comped him pretty much to a Nick Chubb replacement here, but other comps I have is JT and kind of a Joe Mixon type. He was getting a lot of pre-draft analysis like he's a plotter, just a tough runner. But, he showed at the combine he can run a 4.4. And pre-Ohio State, he actually had really good pass catching chops at Ole Miss. But he went into a spot like the AFC North where it's all about ground and pound. They drafted another running back in the 4th, which ended up being Dylan Sampson. So maybe they're going to try to do, which is NFL's a copycat league. They might do their own version of Sonic and Knuckles with that. Won't remain to be seen. Ford's on the last year of his contract. So there's another opportunity for even more touches down the road since we're looking at Dynasty in a 2 to 3 year outlook. But anything to add here about QJ and maybe why maybe some might even want to take him in front of Trey Hendo because we've seen that.
Well, obviously one of the reasons that he's got a little bit more draft capital. I mean, it wasn't that large of a gap, but he did go, a little bit before Henderson. Some people might like the Cleveland Browns landing spot more than like the Patriots. Some people might like he's maybe a better pure runner than Henderson. He just PPR. Pure runner. Nick Chubb has never really been, a guy that you're targeting above some of these pass catching running backs and pure runners. Maybe half PPR. Even your old standard style scoring. You might take him above Henderson. Personally, me, just because of the pass catching. I really like Henderson out of the backfield. Obviously, at Ohio State, Henderson was the one catching the passes, and they really used Judkins as, like you said, a pure runner, Nick Chubb type player. So,
gotcha. Let's keep it moving, man. Emeka Egbuka, another Ohio State Buckeye. There's a lot of these, guys coming in the draft. I mean, it was just kind of alarming. It's kind of, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say like a Penix surprise like last year, but definitely not like that because it's a quarterback. But just still like a logjam at the position, right? Maybe is it more of like do you bet on talent here, or do you bet on him just winning out from talent, like with the Jalen McMillan surge at the end of the year? Mike Evans obviously getting older. Is Chris Godwin going to come back healthy? Like, what would give people confidence about taking Emeka Egbuka at 8 with that crowded room right now?
So I would say this is like the perfect rebuilding dynasty asset to own. Kind of like what JJ McCarthy was last year at the quarterback position. I don't believe he's going to score you a lot of fantasy points this year. He's mostly going to be trying to get you a better pick for next year, hopefully. And then his talent wins out, like you said. I think he's a little bit better pure talent-wise than Olave, but not quite as good as Garrett Wilson. So I have him right there in between those two. Obviously, those are both Ohio State Buckeyes, is why I'm comparing them to him. But, can this guy ever get free from a crowded wide receiver room? I don't know.
I know, from college and the pros now, right?
Yeah,
I guess you could say like he had definitely emerged eventually, right? Because JSN was in front of him, which again that slot archetype, which again Jalen McMillan played a lot of slot. He can play outside. Chris Godwin's mainly a slot. It's like there's a lot of slot guys. It's almost actually, you know what? Now it's coming back to me. New York Giants had a lot of slot players. Obviously now their offense is kind of wonky, but they've always had a lot of slot players. Slot archetypes is what I meant.
Yeah.
I don't know what the vision is. I'm not in Tampa Bay, but when you have kind of like that same kind of receiver, who's really going to play outside when Mike Evans really retires, right? So I don't know. Emeka Buka can. Jalen McMillan can. He played in Washington, but we'll see exactly in the next. I mean, we can also see it as soon as this season if there's anything that does emerge. But I think room for development and the talent is there. Tons
of talent for sure.
Yeah, and I think, what was it, the most receptions and receiving yards, or just receptions, I think, in Ohio State history?
Yeah, he outperformed, basically not outperformed by season, but because he was there longer than some of these other talented guys, he had some of these numbers. But, yeah, he's great talent overall. I mean, you set records at Ohio State, especially maybe wide receiver in all of college football, then you're definitely a talented player, so.
I appreciate that, but you know what? As an Ohio State fan, I still think LSU's got some dogs, man. They're always at the top right now. I think the top four arguably could be all LSU guys. 100%. Anyway, all right, number 9. I'm sorry, Loveland, which is your number 10. I got a little sidetracked here. Colston Loveland, he's my number 9, simply because of the fit here with Ben Johnson's offense, the move tight end, really can kind of do what Laporta did. Or at least what Ben Johnson can do things like he did with Laporta. He's getting all his pieces, right? He wants his pieces to go to work. Obviously, the GM and the ownership are just in jive with their new coach and getting him the toys that he needs to make things happen. With obviously their quarterback and Caleb Williams over there. My comp is probably not too lofty there. Better Mike Gesicki, but I only did that because he's not really like an inline tight end, but he can block. Like if you look at some of the tape, he can block. He's a willing blocker, but I mean, he doesn't have the body type like I would say like an inline guy. He also came in with a little injury. He didn't run the combine. I think he might be even limited early on in these OTAs. But again, a better Mike Gesicki. Like he's more athletic, can do a lot of things. What else do you have to say about Loveland here?
Yeah, so I think he was scouted as the best pure receiving tight end in the combine or in the draft. I think the Bowling Green guy probably had a little bit to say about that. Fannin. He was, Fannin. Yeah, he Fannin was also a great receiving tight end, but obviously Loveland was just a much better player going in the first round, going as the number 1 overall tight end, which was very surprising to some, especially me. I texted JoJo actually that night. He's like, are they crazy? Like Warren is obviously the best tight end in my opinion in that draft. And I still believe that to this day. And that's why I have Warren and Loveland switched. But I will be honest, I have taken Loveland before I've taken Warren because I have the most shares of Warren out of probably any rookie in this draft class, just because I see him fall so much.
See, double down, boys and girls, doubling down, right? So use at your own leisure here. Yeah. I would also say, like, when I mentioned the Kenny block, will it even matter though? Like, I mean, they don't really have the running backs like Ben Johnson did in Detroit, right? So we'll see. I think this might be a very high neutral pass rate in the first year, just based on personnel right now. But obviously, I've got to let them play on the field before. So,
and he was drafted before Brock Bowers, correct? Like his draft capital is before Brock Bowers. I think so, right? Brock Bowers was drafted at 10, right?
I thought Brock Bowers was under 10.
I thought he was at 10. I could be wrong.
Well, he was drafted at 10 too.
Yeah, exactly. Or
they're matched, right?
Bowers.
Yeah, now we're like looking at we should know this, by the way. But like, no, he was 13. 13.
So he was before.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's a different draft class, I would say.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like draft capital is like a huge indicator of success in NFL, usually fantasy football success. Well,
and that athleticism at the position. I would say athleticism at the position specifically for tight end. Yep. Like and he is definitely athletic. He's more. I mean, the fluidness in his movement compared to Tyler Warren. I would say he's a better athlete in that regard. But again, we're about to get to the next guy right here, so let's keep him going. Tyler Warren, which is your boy, the top tight end. I have him at 10. I think the tiebreaker for me was just the landing spot, just because the quarterback situation really, and then the offensive coordinator doesn't really shown exactly what he can really do yet. I mean, granted, Shane Steichen did a lot of good things in Philadelphia, but he hasn't really found the right guy at the helm to get it done. So obviously there's a QB battle going on. We'll probably get to that later in Dynasty talk, or even in redraft talk on other later episodes, even on the main pod, of what I think of that QB room, which I've been taking a lot of the potential guy coming in as a guy who starts some games. But Tyler Warren, do you think he'll play some QB since the QB situation is kind of in flux?
I don't know about all that, but I do, like you say, I think he's going to be their primary weapon. I mean, they don't really have a star out there. They have Pittman, who people were way overdrafting last year, really took a backseat to Downs, especially when Richardson was there. And the reason I have him above is because it's Dynasty. And if Richardson plays as bad as he did last year, and, Daniel Jones plays as bad as Daniel Jones is, they'll probably be drafting early in the first round next year. And there's some QBs that they could get, and he'll be matched up even longer moving forward with one of those QBs. So that's why I have him just a spot ahead, and it already had him pre-draft ranked ahead of Loveland. So that's why I kept him there. I love Warren's profile. I love watching him play at Penn State. He was a dog. So
no, absolutely. I mean, look, you can be the guy. I think that they can use him and be the key cog in the offense, kind of like how there are some teams that focus on the tight end as being their main weapon, like Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Travis Kelce of old. Like, there's plenty of offense that can really target the tight end and make him the number one weapon. That definitely is feasible, just may not be that efficient. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, number 11. We're almost done here. Caleb Johnson. You're a little low on him, so I want to kind of pick your brain on this one. I actually did make a change with this just a few days ago, actually, because the landing spot and a little bit of my comp really kind of spoke to me a little bit. I like the Arian Foster comp. The fluidness in his movement, the speed, the outside, the zone running scheme, everything just kind of fits with the Artie Smith, which is the Artie Smith scheme. I think he's a much better version of what Najee Harris gave Pittsburgh in this, and they're going to run the hell of the ball. The volume is going to be there. I don't know about the pass catching upside necessarily because of Jaylen Warren. That being said, I just feel like this is just year one production is there. It's almost a lock for me. That's why I moved him in my first round. But go ahead. What's the rebuttal? Where am I missing here?
So there's two reasons I have him at 14 and not either 12 or 11. The one is landing spot. They still have Warren there. They just got out of a split backfield, which looks like they're probably going to keep doing. The second reason is because of draft capital. He went in the third round while some of these other running backs went in the second round. And I'm, like I said 2 minutes ago, I'm huge on draft capital. So I moved him down a little bit. He was actually, I think, either my fourth, maybe my fifth ranked running back pre-draft. I love Caleb Johnson, but I just don't know fantasy-wise going in the third, although it's not that big of a drop to some. Draft capital does matter in the end. So I dropped him down a couple spots. I love taking him round 2. You're rarely actually going to get him in round 2. There's going to be – he's going at 8 sometimes. He's going at 7 sometimes. So, but, yeah, he's my 14th ranked player. I loved him pre-draft. Don't really love the landing spot. Don't really love the draft capital, although it's not so.
I mean, you're one of the few that have actually said they don't like the landing spot to go to Pittsburgh. But hey, you know what? It's definitely fair. They also have a quarterback situation, so I definitely can understand that. But here we go. Let's keep moving. Last one for this particular episode, number 12. You're number 11, Matthew Golden. Now I've moved him down more, just a few spots. I think he was actually in my top 10, my number 9 player. I moved him down. He's still in my first round just because, again, he's kind of just in that, again, first year production really. But I just don't think the long term is really there just because there is so many receivers just like him. His production profile is lacking. Like, there's a lot of red flags with that. If you don't produce in college, you don't really break out at a real age. Granted, there was some injuries when he was at Houston. And then maybe some quarterback situation where, Quinn Ewers was never really that guy, even though he was really highly touted coming out of high school. But also could have been the play calling. Maybe Sarkisian just didn't really give his guys the ball. I guess the last thing before I throw it to you would be the indicators on his production profile are very in line with some of the receivers that were reached, where like in past drafts, like Kevin White, Cordell Patterson, Brashad Perriman, Kelvin Benjamin, Josh Doxson. Like these aren't really good company with the production profile where he had coming in, and then where he was drafted in the first round very early. Like those speak to me. But granted, it's a new person. The opportunity's there. But go ahead.
So I would say this is the complete opposite year one you're looking for from Mbuka. So Mbuka, I think you should be waiting a year to really, pick up his production in the NFL. Matthew Golden, you're looking right away. He needs to produce, or you're probably going to just move off of him. The opportunity's there. There's no dog there. They really, shied away from getting Reed the ball towards the end of the year. Dobbs had some drops. Witts never really produced. Watson might be, injury riddled for the rest of his career. So he's coming in as the only one of them being drafted in round one. He's coming in, should be the dog. And if he's not, like you said, you're probably looking at a Kevin White. You're probably looking at a Josh Dotson. So I have him at 11 just because of draft capital and opportunity. But I'm very wary of taking him anywhere in the first round. But his potential, he could be he could move into the top 5 dynasty assets of all of these players we're talking about, just because of he could be the number 1 receiver on a Packers team with Jordan Love, who's going inside the top 3 rounds of dynasty drafts. So the potential there is crazy, and that's why I have him 11. But be very wary of this pick, just because of what JoJo said.
Yeah, and I mean, like the comps I have here are definitely more for upside, right? Like when you watch him on tape, Connor, like the route running that he has, he can definitely get separation. A lot like Ladd and a lot like Zay. He could do a lot of damage outs after the catch. When he caught the ball, he was looking to score. He was definitely looking to advance the ball, trying to get first downs if he wasn't even within range. Like that's why I like the Zay Flowers comp, because Zay Flowers does a lot of his damage once the ball is in his hands. So he's definitely dynamic, can definitely make plays. He was their best player down the stretch in the college football playoff. It was hands down. Like the kid is ultra talented. But so was Kevin White. Like, I mean, when you really think about it. So, but anyway, let's hope for the best for the kid. But that wraps up our top 12. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. Again, this kind of post-draft gut check. Definitely like and subscribe on the pod, this episode. Leave some comments. Help us where we can get better on just topics that you might want to see and us cover, especially when it comes to rookies and prospects leading up and throughout this offseason. Thanks again. Connor, thanks for joining me. I look forward to doing this rest of this series with you. And if you have any, I guess before we go, do you have any call outs about the Dynasty Handbook coming up? But then we can close up here.
Yeah. So what I mentioned on the podcast on last week's podcast, if you want to check us out, the BALLSVILLEGame.com. You can check out our website or the podcast, all our leads we got going on. But what I mentioned was we're basically just going to be doing it together. Me and JoJo, we're going to be putting this thing live on air. Every single page we'll be going through you, and then we'll, at the end of the 2 weeks or into the 4 weeks, however long it takes us to fill this thing out, then we'll release it on the website. So all together, it'll be there. You can, scroll through it. It'll be downloaded by PDF, just like the last one. So check this out. Like JoJo said, pay attention to next week's, or I should say Thursday's recording, 13 through 24.
Yeah, we're aiming for a 2 episode per week drop, ladies and gents. So just be on the lookout. We'll be sending out some notifications in either the threads, the Discord especially. But just be on the lookout. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.